The wind howled through the ruins of the alien city, carrying dust and the faint smell of burned metal. Cracked towers leaned like broken bones against a red sky. Smoke still rose from what used to be homes. Somewhere in that silence, the past whispered like ghosts. Eli Carter walked slowly through the wreckage. His boots crunched over glass and ash. He was alone, or at least he was supposed to be. The war had ended 3 months ago, but orders were clear. No survivors were to be left behind. The aliens. The Zyra were considered dangerous, even the young ones. Yet Eli couldn't help feeling the emptiness here wasn't the enemy's doing. It was something worse. It was what humans had done. He adjusted his helmet, scanning with a handheld device. No life signs. It beeped, but something made him stop. A faint, broken sound. He froze, holding his breath. The sound came again, barely there, like static or a whisper in the wind. Mom. Eli turned sharply. His heart skipped. That couldn't be real. No one was supposed to be alive here. He moved toward the sound, passing burnt walls and fallen beams. The word came again, soft and full of pain. Mom. He found a half-collapsed structure. Maybe it was once a school or a house. The roof had caved in, leaving a hole large enough to crawl through. Eli ducked down, flashlight flickering as he moved inside. The air was thick with dust. Then he saw it, a small shape under twisted metal, breathing weakly. He knelt and pulled the debris aside carefully. Beneath the rubble was a girl, not human. Her skin shimmered faintly blue under the dirt, and her hair glowed silver like threads of light. Her eyes fluttered open, huge and full of fear. She looked at him and whispered again, her voice broken. Mom. Eli froze. She couldn't be more than 8 or 9 years old by human age. A child. His scanner beeped softly now, finally detecting a weak life sign. The orders in his head screamed against what his heart was telling him. Report alien survivors. Do not engage. Leave the area immediately. But he couldn't leave her there. She tried to move and cried out in pain. Her leg was trapped under a heavy beam. Eli dropped his weapon and started lifting, his arms shaking with effort. The metal finally gave way, and he pulled her free. Her breathing was shallow, her eyes half closed. It's okay, he said softly. Forgetting she might not understand his words, you're safe now. She didn't answer, but her hand weakly reached toward him, tiny, trembling, and cold. He felt something twist inside him. He had seen enough death to last a lifetime. He couldn't add another to the list. He wrapped her in his cloak and carried her out of the ruins. The wind outside hit his face hard, but the warmth of her small body against his chest made him move faster. His gums buzzed suddenly. Carter, report your sector, a voice ordered. He froze, looking at the girl in his arms. She stirred, eyes opening a little. Mom. Eli pressed the comm. Nothing here, he said after a moment. No survivors, just ashes. Copy that. Move to the next grid. He switched the device off, his heart pounded. He knew what he had just done. He had lied to command. If they found out, he'd be charged with treason. But as he looked down at the girl again, he couldn't regret it. The sky darkened, and the air grew colder. He found a small shelter in the side of a ruined transport ship, enough to keep the wind out. He laid the girl on a blanket, checked her pulse, and gave her a few drops of water. She coughed weakly, but swallowed. Eli studied her in the dim light. There were strange patterns on her skin, glowing softly, fading in and out like breathing light. They looked like constellations. He wondered what world she came from, what her people were like before the war turned everything into dust. She opened her eyes again and stared at him. For a moment, fear disappeared, replaced by something else. Hope. Then she whispered the same word again, quiet and full of confusion. Mom. Eli didn't correct her, nodded, and said, "Rest now." Outside, the wind carried the cries of metal and memories of war. Inside that broken ship, a human soldier sat beside an alien child, watching her sleep, unsure of what he had just begun. For the first time in years, Eli felt something other than duty or guilt. He felt purpose. He didn't know who this girl was or why she had survived when others hadn't. But one thing was clear. He couldn't leave her to die. Not again. Not this one. As night fell over the ruins, the galaxy held its breath. A human and an alien shared a fragile silence, the first spark of something new, born out of destruction. And somewhere far above, the stars seemed to flicker, as if they, too, had heard her whisper. The night stretched long and cold over the wasteland. The stars above were sharp and endless, watching quietly as Eli carried the alien girl through the ruins. His arms ached, but he didn't slow down. Every gust of wind sounded like voices, soldiers, commanders, ghosts of the war that refused to die. He finally reached his hidden shelter, a broken cargo pod buried halfway in the sand. It wasn't much, just metal walls, an old generator, and a few blankets, but it was enough to keep them alive. The moment he stepped inside, he felt the temperature rise a little. He set the girl gently on a mattress and removed his helmet. Her breathing was shallow, uneven. He opened his small medkit, injected a stim dose into her arm, and wrapped her wounds. She stirred slightly, glowing lines on her skin pulsing faintly under the light. Eli sat beside her, staring at those lights. They looked almost like veins of starlight running through her body. When she finally opened her eyes again, her gaze darted around in fear. Eli raised his hands slowly, showing he meant no harm. "It's okay," he said softly. "You're safe here." She didn't understand all his words, but something in his voice calmed her. Her lips moved, forming a single word: Mom. Eli sighed quietly. "No," he whispered. "I'm not her. But I'll help you, I promise." She blinked, confused, and then drifted back into sleep. For a while, he just sat there, listening to the faint hum of the generator and the girl's breathing. He hadn't heard such quiet peace in years. The next morning, the desert sun hit the horizon like fire. Eli stepped outside to scan the area. His tracker flashed red military patrols were sweeping nearby zones. If they caught him hiding a survivor, especially an alien child, he'd be executed without question. He went back inside quickly. The girl was awake now, sitting up slowly. She stared at him with wide eyes, her hands clutching the blanket. "You, human?" she asked in broken words. Eli nodded. "Yes, I'm human." She looked down, trembling. "Humans, bad. Humans kill." He froze. Those words hit harder than he expected. He knelt down so she could see his face clearly. "Not all of us," he said gently. "Some of us want peace." She didn't reply, but she didn't look away either. Instead, she pointed at herself. "Lyra," she said softly. "Lyra," Eli repeated, nodding. "That's your name?" She nodded once, shyly, and for a moment a tiny smile flickered across her face. Then she looked at his bandaged arm. The wound he'd gotten pulling her from the rubble and touched it carefully. Her fingertips glowed faint blue. Eli felt warmth spreading through his skin. When she pulled her hand back, the pain was gone. He looked at her, shocked. "Oh, did you?" Lyra just looked at him, sleepy-eyed. "Mom, teach." He sat back, silent. There was more to her than he'd guessed. Healing powers. Genetic light. Maybe even something the military feared. By nightfall, Lyra had eaten some of his rationed food and drank water. She still spoke little, but her eyes followed him with trust now. When he cleaned his rifle, she asked in a soft voice, "You fight?" "Not anymore," he said, quietly. "I used to." "For who?" she asked. He didn't answer right away. Then, finally, for the wrong side. Silence filled the room. Lyra watched him, tilting her head. "You stop." He nodded. "Yes, I stopped." She stared at the metal walls, then whispered something in her own language. He didn't understand the words, but the tone was gentle, like a lullaby. The sound echoed softly through the pod, making even the old metal seem less cold. When she finished, she lay down and closed her eyes. Eli sat back, running a hand over his face. He couldn't stop thinking about that whisper in the ruins, "Mom?" and how it had brought him here. He had broken orders, lied to command, and risked everything for a child he didn't even know. But looking at her sleeping now, he didn't feel regret. He felt something else, something he hadn't felt since the war began. Humanity. Outside, the sand shifted under the wind. Far away, patrol drones swept the dunes with red light. Inside, the small pod glowed faintly with Lyra's quiet pulse of light. Eli didn't know what tomorrow would bring. He only knew one thing: he couldn't let them find her. He would protect her, even if it meant becoming an enemy of his own people. As he turned off the lights and the pod sank into darkness, he heard her whisper once more, half asleep, voice trembling like wind over glass. "Mom." Eli smiled sadly. "Sleep, Lyra," he said softly. "You're safe now, I promise." And in that quiet, under the endless stars, a soldier who had once followed orders without question made a silent vow that no child, alien or not, would ever be left to die again. The morning came with a gray sky and the rumble of thunder rolling over the dunes. Eli woke up before dawn, checking the scanners for movement. The radar flickered with faint signals, patrol drones. They were getting closer. He looked over at Lyra. She was still asleep, curled under his old jacket, her soft blue light pulsing faintly across the walls. For a moment, she looked peaceful, like she didn't belong to this dying world. But Eli knew peace was fragile, and the war never truly ended. He stood, loading his rifle quietly. The generator hummed low in the corner, masking his steps. Then the scanner beeped louder. Something mechanical was approaching fast. Eli swore under his breath and moved to the window, through the sandstorm. Haze, he saw it, a patrol drone, black and humming, scanning for heat signatures. He crouched down and whispered, "Lyra, wake up." Her eyes opened instantly, glowing faint silver in the dim light. She sensed his tension before he spoke another word. "Bad?" she asked softly. "Very bad," Eli said, pulling her close. "Stay quiet. Don't move." He led her to a hidden compartment under the floor, a small space he used to store supplies. Inside, he whispered, "Don't make a sound." Lyra hesitated, eyes full of fear. "You come too." "I'll be right here," he promised. "I won't let them take you." She nodded slowly and crawled inside. He shut the metal panel just as the drone's light cut across the shelter. Eli pressed himself against the wall, rifle ready but silent. The air vibrated with the drone's electric hum as it scanned the entrance. A voice crackled through his com. "Unit 47, report status. We're reading unauthorized power usage in your grid." Eli's heart raced. He switched on his comm, keeping his voice calm. "This is Carter, Unit 47. Negative on survivors. Just wreckage and heat from leftover tech. Copy that. We're sending a verification drone to confirm," the voice replied. "Understood." Eli lied again. His jaw tight, the drone hovered near the window, its red eye glowing as it projected a scanning beam inside. The beam swept across the walls, the floor, and finally the compartment where Lyra hid. Eli's finger tightened on the trigger. The scanner paused and moved on. After a tense 10 seconds, the drone's light faded, and it drifted away into the storm. Eli exhaled slowly, lowering his weapon. He opened the compartment. Lyra was still there, eyes wide and frightened, clutching the edge of the blanket. When she saw him, she reached out her small hand. "Gone?" "Yeah," he said softly. "It's gone." She looked at him for a long moment. "You lied to your people?" He hesitated. "Yeah, I did." "Why?" she asked. Eli didn't answer right away. He sat beside her, looking at the metal floor. "Because sometimes doing the right thing means breaking the wrong rules." Lyra tilted her head, not understanding all the words, but feeling the meaning. She reached out again and placed her glowing hand over his. "You good human." Eli laughed quietly. Some might disagree. She smiled faintly, her eyes soft. "You save me? That good." Her words struck deeper than she could ever know. In a world built on orders and obedience, those 4 words meant more than any medal. Later, when the storm cleared, Eli packed their few supplies. They couldn't stay here any longer. The patrols would return. He found an old hover truck in the wreckage outside, half buried in sand. It still had a working engine, barely. "Where we go?" Lyra asked as she climbed into the passenger seat, clutching a blanket. "Somewhere safe," he said. "Far from soldiers." "Safe," she repeated, as if testing the word. "For you, too." He smiled faintly. "Let's hope so." They drove through the dunes for hours, the horizon endless and empty. The sun glared off the sand, painting everything gold. Lyra watched the world outside with wide eyes, whispering things in her language. Names of places, maybe, or memories. At one point, she asked softly, "You have family?" Eli's hands tightened on the wheel. "Used to," he said. "Not anymore. Gone." She asked. He nodded. War took them. Lyra was quiet for a long time, then reached over and placed her hand gently on his arm. Then, "Your family now." Eli blinked, taken by surprise. He looked at her, small, fragile, and glowing softly in the fading light, and something inside him shifted. For the first time in years, he felt like maybe he wasn't just surviving. Maybe he was living for something again, but the peace didn't last. As they approached the edge of the desert, his tracker beeped again, multiple signals. Military interceptors. I cursed under his breath and hit the accelerator. The hover truck roared, kicking up waves of sand behind them. Lyra gripped the seat, eyes wide. "Bad again." "Very bad," he said. "Hold on tight." Blaster fire lit the sky. The truck swerved, engines screaming. Lyra closed her eyes and her skin began to glow brighter like a beacon. A shield of light shimmered around them for an instant as a blast hit the truck. The energy scattered harmlessly into the air. Eli stared in shock. "What was that?" Lyra looked weak, exhausted, but whispered, "Mom, teach me. Protect." He didn't understand how, but her mother had given her a power that could save them, and maybe more. He gripped the controls and sped toward the horizon. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew this. The moment he lied to his command, he wasn't just a soldier anymore. He was something different, a protector. And as the sun sank behind them, painting the dunes in red and gold, Eli realized he wasn't running from his past. He was running toward a promise. The storm had passed, but the silence that followed was worse. The desert stretched endlessly under a copper sky, its dunes glowing faintly in the morning light. The hover truck hummed weakly, every part rattling as Eli pushed it harder than it was built for. Each second of quiet was filled with tension, the kind that pressed on the chest and made the air feel heavy. Lyra sat beside him, wrapped in his old jacket, her silver hair tangled by the wind. Her eyes were half closed, glowing softly, but even in exhaustion, she watched the horizon like a creature sensing danger. Eli kept glancing at the scanner mounted to the dashboard, 3 red blips, growing closer. He cursed under his breath. "They're tracking us." Either the drone marked the location or someone decoded my come signal. Lyra turned to him. They find us? Eli's jaw tightened. Not yet, but they will. He scanned the dunes for any sign of cover. There was nothing but sand and wind. In the far distance, a canyon split the horizon like a scar, the old mining tunnels from before the war. That was his only chance. "Hold on, Lyra," he said, gripping the controls tighter. "This is going to get rough." The engine roared, coughing smoke as he pushed it to full speed. The truck bounced over dunes, throwing clouds of sand into the air. Behind them, streaks of light cut across the sky, scout drones. They were closing in fast. Lyra clutched the seat. "Why they follow?" "Because you're special," he said quickly, eyes fixed ahead. "And because I broke the rules." Her small voice came again, soft and sad. "Bad rules." Eli couldn't help but grin despite the chaos. "Yeah," he said. "Very bad rules." A red beam shot past, missing them by inches. The sand exploded beside the truck, blinding him for a moment. He jerked the wheel, barely keeping control. Damn it. Lyra gasped as another blast shook the air. The scanner screamed with warnings. The military wasn't trying to capture anymore. They were trying to erase. Eli made a split-second decision. "We're ditching this thing." He slammed the controls, guiding the truck straight toward the canyon. The walls loomed ahead, rough and jagged. At the last second, he braked hard. Out. Lyra hesitated, eyes wide. "Jump." "Yes. Jump." They leaped out as the hover truck skidded forward, crashing into the canyon wall in a burst of dust and fire. Eli pulled Lyra behind a rock as the explosion lit the cliffs red. The drone circled overhead, scanning the wreckage. "Please," Lyra whispered, "don't find us." Eli held a finger to his lips. She. The drone searched for several minutes, beams sweeping over the canyon. One passed close enough that Eli could see his reflection in its red lens. He held his breath. Lyra pressed herself against his chest, trembling. Finally, the drones pulled back, following the trail of wreckage deeper into the dunes. When the last hum faded, Eli exhaled shakily. They waited in silence for several more minutes before he spoke. "You okay?" Lyra nodded, though her hands still shook. "I protect you," she whispered. Eli looked at her, confused. "Protect me, Lyra. You're just a kid." "I'm the one who's supposed to protect you." But she shook her head slowly. "No, you protect me with gun. I protect you with light." Before he could ask what she meant, she held up her hands. Her palms glowed softly, and for a moment, the air around them shimmered. Not just light, but energy, like a living shield. Eli could feel it hum through the ground. He stared, speechless. "What are you?" She looked down. "I don't know," Mom say. "I carry hope." Her voice was so small, yet something about it made the world feel bigger. Eli's throat tightened. He remembered the files he'd seen during the war. About alien scientists who were developing something called Project Dawnlight, a fusion of energy and life, a power that could heal worlds or destroy them. The humans had bombed those labs to ash. But what if one survived? Eli looked at Lyra with new understanding. That's why they want her dead. He stood and scanned the canyon. "We need shelter," he said firmly. "Somewhere they won't find us." They walked for hours through narrow passages, their boots crunching on gravel. Lyra's glow lit their path faintly. Eventually, they found an old mining outpost half buried in rock. The doors were half melted, the rooms covered in dust, but it was something. Eli checked the generator dead. He fixed it using parts from his pack until a faint hum returned to life. Light flickered on, revealing faded writing on the wall. Zera Research Division. Lyra stared at the symbol beside it, a glowing spiral she traced with her fingers. "Mom's mark," she whispered. Eli's heart pounded. "Your mother worked here?" Lyra nodded slowly. "She say light will save both worlds. But humans came. Fire. Screams." Her voice broke. Eli knelt beside her, his voice steady but gentle. "We'll finish what she started, Lyra, I promise." She looked up at him, her eyes wet but shining. "You promise?" He smiled faintly. "I never break a promise." Outside, the wind howled again, carrying the sound of distant engines. But this time, Eli didn't feel afraid. He had found the truth and a reason to fight. He loaded his rifle and looked toward the horizon. "They're not hunting a child," he said softly. "They're hunting the future." Lyra reached out, touching his arm. Her voice trembled but was sure. "Then we make future run faster." Eli nodded. Together, under the fading desert sun, the soldier and the alien girl prepared for the next storm, not to hide from it, but to face it head-on. The wind outside had died down, leaving behind a haunting quiet. Inside the old Zyra research base, the air smelled of rust, dust, and memories. The dim lights flickered from the weak generator Eli had managed to repair. It wasn't much, but it was enough to chase the darkness away. Lyra sat on a cracked chair, watching as Eli moved through the room, scanning every terminal, every piece of equipment. The walls were covered in strange alien writing, their patterns glowing faintly when touched. It was like the base itself was still alive, still waiting for someone to come back. "Your mother worked here," Eli said quietly, brushing dust off an old monitor. "Maybe we can find something." "Anything." Lyra nodded. "Mom, make light. For peace, not for war." Eli looked at her, studying the determination in her small face. She was just a child, yet she carried the weight of something far greater than herself. He turned back to the console and powered it up. The screen blinked, then came to life, showing alien symbols that slowly translated into human language through his translator implant. Project Dawnlight, Unified Energy Stabilization Protocol. Eli's breath caught. "I've seen this name before." He clicked open the files. Blueprints and scientific logs filled the screen, notes about merging organic and synthetic life energy to create self-repairing systems, weapons that could heal instead of destroy. The last entry was written by Dr. Zira Celine, Lyra's mother. "We succeeded. The child is the key. Her energy balance is perfect. If she lives, there will be hope. If she dies, peace dies with her." Eli stepped back, the words echoing in his mind. "The child, Lyra." He looked at her slowly. "You were part of the project." Lyra tilted her head, not fully understanding. "Part. You," Eli said softly, kneeling in front of her. "You're what your mother created to save both our worlds. Your living proof piece can exist energy that heals, not kills." Lyra's eyes widened. "Then why?" "Humans hurt her." Eli's throat tightened. "Because they were afraid. People destroy what they don't understand." Lyra looked down, her glowing fingers tracing the floor. "Mom say, humans can learn, but they must want to." Before Eli could answer, the base alarm suddenly beeped, a faint radar ping. He checked the scanner. Multiple life forms. They weren't alone anymore. "Damn it," he muttered, rushing to shut down the terminal. "They found us." Lyra stood up, trembling. "Bad men again." Eli loaded his rifle, checking his ammo. "Yeah, and this time they won't stop until we're both dead." He guided her toward the back of the base, where an old elevator shaft led to the underground tunnels. "We have to move." But Lyra froze near a console glowing faintly blue. "Wait," she whispered. "There's something calling." Eli turned. The console pulsed with a rhythm, almost like a heartbeat. Lyra stepped closer and placed her hand on it. Instantly, streams of light burst from her fingers, flowing into the walls. The base lit up, glowing circuits spreading across the floor and sealing like veins. Eli shielded his eyes. "Lyra, what are you doing?" Her voice echoed softly. She left a message. "For you." A hologram flickered to life in front of them. A tall alien woman with the same silver hair and gentle eyes as Lyra. Her voice was calm, but heavy with sorrow. "If you are seeing this, my daughter lives. And that means there is still time. The humans will come for her. They fear the power she holds. But remember, she was never meant to be a weapon. She is the bridge. Protect her, and she will save them all." The hologram faded, leaving silence. Lyra stood frozen, tears streaming down her glowing cheeks. "Mom." Eli swallowed hard, trying to steady his voice. "She knew this would happen. She trusted you. And she trusted me." The scanner beeped again, closer now. Heavy footsteps echoed from the tunnels above. The soldiers had arrived. "Move, Lyra." Eli grabbed her hand, and they ran into the elevator shaft, sliding down the old cables into the darkness below. They landed hard in a storage level filled with broken machines and fuel tanks. The noise above grew louder. They were being surrounded. Eli crouched behind a large crate, breathing hard. Lyra crouched beside him, still trembling. "They won't stop," she whispered. "I know," he said, "but neither will I." Suddenly, light filled the room as soldiers stormed in, their armor gleaming under helmet lamps. "Hands where we can see them," one shouted. "You are under arrest for treason." Eli stood slowly, weapon lowered. "She's just a child," he said. "You don't understand. She's an experimental asset." The soldier cut him off coldly. "Orders are clear." Behind him, Lyra's glow grew stronger, not from fear this time, but from something deeper. The lights began to flicker. Eli turned toward her, eyes wide. "Lyra, what are you doing?" Her voice was soft, filled with calm power. "Mom said, light will heal." A wave of energy pulsed from her body, bright and warm, spreading through the air like sunrise. The soldiers stumbled back, their weapons melting into dust. Their armor cracked, but instead of burning, they froze, stunned, disarmed, but alive. When the light faded, the base was silent again. Lyra swayed, weak and pale. Eli caught her before she fell. Hey, easy. "You did it," he whispered. She looked up at him faintly. "They won't hurt anymore," she said softly. "Mom said, light never kills." Eli held her tight eyes, burning. He knew now she wasn't just something to protect. She was something to believe in. Above them, the stars began to pierce through the storm clouds, shining brighter than before, and deep underground, among the ashes of war. A forgotten secret had come alive again, the kind of secret powerful enough to change everything. The tunnels beneath the desert base were dark, narrow, and suffocating. Eli carried Lyra close, her small body trembling against his chest. Every footstep echoed off the stone walls, mixing with the distant hum of approaching soldiers. The patrol had found them, and this time there would be no mistakes. No escape without a fight. They reached a large underground chamber, once a storage bay for mining equipment, now littered with broken machinery and rusted crates. Eli set Lyra down behind a stack of containers. She clutched his arm, her silver hair glowing faintly, pulsing with the rhythm of her heartbeat. "Listen to me," he whispered. "I'll handle this. You stay hidden, okay?" Lyra shook her head. "No, I help you." Eli swallowed. She was just a child, yet the weight of the galaxy seemed to press on her small shoulders. "You're not ready for that," he said. "Just stay behind me." Above them, the footsteps grew louder, echoing like thunder through the tunnels. Shouts followed, orders shouted in harsh, metallic tones. The soldiers were methodical, trained to kill without hesitation. Eli checked his rifle. Bullets were scarce, but the chamber offered cover. When the first soldier rounded the corner, Eli fired. A single shot, precise, hitting the mechanical scanner on the soldier's armor. Sparks flew. The man fell back, stunned but alive. Eli's heart pounded, and more soldiers poured into the chamber. Lyra's glow flared suddenly. She raised her hands instinctively. A wave of energy radiated outward, knocking soldiers off their feet, sending weapons clattering. Eli froze, realizing she had done it instinctively, her power. Her mother's gift was growing stronger under fear and urgency. "Lyra," he shouted. "Stay calm." Her eyes met his, wide and frightened. "I protect you," she cried. Eli realized she wasn't just defending him, she was defending herself, their chance at survival. He gritted his teeth, ducking behind a crate as energy beams lanced through the chamber, scattering the soldiers. They regrouped quickly, charging with blaster rifles. Eli fired, dodged, and reloaded, adrenaline driving every movement. One soldier lunged toward Lyra. She raised her hands, and the light pulsed again. The man froze mid-step, his weapon melting into liquid metal. His eyes widened in shock before he collapsed harmlessly to the floor. Eli's mind raced. She's powerful, too powerful to ignore. They're not just after her life, they're after her energy. The soldier's leader, a tall human with armor that gleamed like black steel, stepped into the chamber. "Carter," he barked. "Drop the child. You know the orders. Stand down or die." Eli stood, rifle shaking in his hands. "She's just a child. You won't get her." The leader smirked. "You know what happens to traitors?" Lyra's glow intensified, her entire body shimmering like liquid silver. Energy arcs danced from her fingertips, striking the walls, sending sparks across the chamber. Eli's chest tightened. He had never seen anything like this. The air felt thick with power, charged and alive. "Lyra," he shouted, "use it wisely. Not to hurt, just to protect." She nodded, tears streaming down her glowing cheeks. I can do this," she whispered. The soldiers attacked again. But Eli's tactical mind combined with Lyra's energy made them unstoppable. He led them through narrow corridors, drawing the attackers into traps and pitfalls. Every corner had prepared defenses, some from Eli's knowledge, others improvised with debris and leftover machinery. But then, a blast hit Eli directly, throwing him against the wall. Pain seared through his side. He groaned, crawling toward cover. Lyra screamed, rushing to him. Her light enveloped him instantly, a wave of energy that healed the worst of his injuries, knitting flesh and closing wounds. But the effort drained her. Her glow dimmed, her body slumping against him. "No, no," Eli muttered, holding her tightly. "You can't, don't." She looked up, whispering faintly, "I protect you. Promise." Eli felt a surge of emotion. She had risked herself for him, a small child taking on impossible odds. He gritted his teeth, pushing the pain aside. "Then I'll protect you, too," he said, voice steady despite everything. With renewed determination, he stood and fired, covering Lyra as she rested against a crate. The last wave of soldiers hesitated under the combined force of human tactics and alien energy. Eli realized something. The power she carried could end this without anyone dying further. But it required control, focus. "Lyra, listen to me," he said urgently. "Channel your light, not for fear, not for anger, only for protection." Her hands lifted, glowing faintly at first, then stronger, a shield forming around them. The soldiers faltered, weapons clattering, energy arcs bouncing harmlessly off the barrier. Eli moved forward, pushing them back with every shot, creating space for Lyra to regain strength. The chamber fell silent, except for the hum of Lyra's shield. The leader of the patrol fell back, staring in disbelief. "Possible," he whispered. Eli lowered his rifle slowly. "No," he said. "Not impossible. Just human. A cue." And something more. Lyra collapsed in his arms, exhausted but alive. Eli held her close, feeling her warmth, the pulse of her energy. Outside, the desert wind whistled through the base, carrying the faint sound of distant sirens. They had survived. For now, Eli looked down at Lyra, her silver hair tangled, glowing faintly, eyes half closed. "You did it," he said softly. "You protected us. Both." She whispered weakly, "Mom would be proud." Eli nodded, eyes burning. "I know she is, Lyra. I know she is." And somewhere deep beneath the desert, in a ruined base that had once held secrets of war and death, a human and an alien child sat together, battered but victorious. They had survived the last stand, and the galaxy had no idea how much power, hope, and light they now carried. The morning sun crept over the shattered skyline, painting the desert in gold and soft pink. The underground base lay still. The echo of battle faded into the silence. Debris from fallen soldiers and broken machines littered the floor, but at the heart of the wreckage, two figures remained: a wounded human and a glowing alien child. Eli Carter sat on the floor, his back against a scorched wall, one arm wrapped around Lyra. She was barely conscious, her silver hair dimmed, the light within her pulsing faintly. He could feel her breathing, slow but steady. Every time her chest rose, he exhaled with relief. The radio buzzed on his belt. He ignored it. He had ignored every call for the last hour. His mission had changed. He was no longer a soldier. Hey, he was something else now, something more dangerous, a man with something to protect. Lyra stirred against him. "Did we win?" she whispered, her voice weak but hopeful. Eli looked down at her, brushing dust from her cheek. "We're still here, aren't we?" She smiled slightly, then coughed. "They'll come back, probably," he said. "But we won't be alone next time." He reached into his pack and pulled out the data drive from her mother's console, the full research logs of Project Onlight. It wasn't just a record of Lyra's power. It was proof of what she could become: a living beacon of healing energy, something that could end wars instead of starting them. He turned on his old comms console. The signal was weak, but the message was clear to any outpost receiving this. "This is former Staff Sergeant Eli Carter. I have located the final subject of Project Dawnlight, Zyra's daughter, Lyra. She is alive, she is peaceful, and she can change everything. I'm transmitting the data logs now. The war must end. The truth must live." He hit send. It was done. No more hiding, no more running. The world would now know. A long silence followed. Then the console beeped softly. A response. "Carter, this is Haven Colony. We read your signal. Receiving data now. You're not alone anymore." Eli slumped back against the wall, closing his eyes. "We made it," he whispered. Lyra looked up at him. "What's Haven?" "It's a place," he said, "where people go to start over. Maybe a place where you can grow without fear." She smiled weakly. "Can you come too?" He chuckled. "You think I'm letting you go alone?" Suddenly, the sound of engines echoed from above. Eli jumped to his feet, rifle in hand. But it wasn't enemy soldiers this time. It was a dropship. Sleek, civilian colors. The insignia of Haven Colony painted across the hull. The ship landed carefully near the ruined base. Small teams stepped out, human and alien doctors, dressed in neutral uniforms, hands open, weapons holstered. One woman stepped forward, her voice soft over the speaker. "We received your transmission. We're here for the child, and you." Eli didn't move. "She's not a weapon. She's not." The woman agreed. "She's the future. And we want to help her become it." Eli turned to Lyra. "It's your choice." Lyra looked at the ship, the people, the open hands. Then at Eli. She reached out and took his hand. "Only if you come with me." He smiled. "Always." They boarded the ship together. As it lifted into the sky, Lyra sat by the window, watching the desert fade into a memory. The sun caught her silver hair, making it shine like starlight. Eli sat beside her, tired but alive, watching a world being born through the eyes of a child who once whispered Mom into the ashes. As they left the war-torn land behind, Haven Colony sent out a broadcast of their own, the first peaceful message shared between human and Zyra in years. It was a simple message, but it echoed across space. The girl lives, and with her, hope lives too. Down below, the military would find only wreckage. No bodies, no child, no soldier. Just a whisper left behind, a whisper that would live forever in the stories that followed. They left her to die, but she survived. Because one human heard her cry and chose to listen. And far above, beyond the clouds and fear, a new future began. Not with fire, not with weapons, but with light.